Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And this video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about crude oil. I know I usually don't cover commodities on this channel, but today we're going to be talking about crude oil because today I think it presents a decent bearish setup as well as a bullish setup. So on a really short-term basis here, we actually kind of had this rising wedge, and we actually broke down out of this rising wedge. And this rising wedge got formed right into these long-term pivots we had from back here. Now, usually when you break down from a pivot, you're almost always going to get a back test of one. Then usually you'll see a retracement and then a break back over that pivot, or potentially even slide to new lows. In this case, since oil went to negative territory, and I don't think we can actually see lower than we saw earlier this year, I do actually believe crude oil has come into a bottom here. I do think we could potentially come into those retracements and then actually break back over these pivots. So as I kind of mentioned, we have this short-term rising wedge here, and I kind of want to give a place where you could potentially look to buy. I actually think you could short crude futures here, and I think you could short versus these recent highs at about 43. That's its long-term pivot. I think you can short against that level, and right now I do think you still have a decent risk reward to short these futures. Where I think crude could potentially be headed is its 38.2% retracement of its rally here, and that sits right at about 26 a share. I think there's a good chance we see that level. We could also only see this 23.6% retracement. It sits at about 33, but I think there's a much higher chance we actually see this 26 area. Usually when a stock retraces, it's almost always going to come into that 38.2 to 50% retracement before then actually making new highs. So a place I'd probably look to buy is going to be right around this 26 area. That's also in line with its highs here, so we'd basically be back testing this breakout. On a long-term basis, you also have this pivot back here at about 26. So I think there's a lot of reasons to go back to this $26 area. You have this long-term pivot here, the 38.2% retracement, and you'd also be back testing that breakout. So I think there's a really high chance we do at least see this 26 area. So right now I do think on a short-term basis, you could short, you'd be risking about 4 points for potentially 15 points. So that's pretty decent risk reward. It's not the best. It's about 1 to 3, which isn't terrible, but it's not the greatest either. Now, when we do come into this 26 area, I do think we actually get a sizable bounce, and this could potentially be the start of a new bull trend. As I said before, I don't really think futures can go below where they went this year, so I do think they've kind of bottomed out, and this is the start of a new bullish trend. So I think something we could potentially see in the price is a move down on a short-term basis back to this $26 area, and then probably a bounce off this level and actually a break to new highs. This would be the start of a first wave higher and probably a 5-wave zigzag trend higher. On a really long-term basis, you have this long-term downtrend line here that sits at about 45. I think there's a good chance we get a move over this downtrend line and we kind of break out of this bearish trend we've been in ever since 2008. You know, most of the time when stocks move down or up, they're going to be in 5-wave trends. So I think on a really long-term basis, you could see an ABC wave up, potentially back to around this $100 area back here. But I do think on a short-term basis, I'd expect something to unfold in the price like this, where you get a retracement, then break the new highs, back test that breakout, and then potentially push to new highs and over this long-term downtrend line. So even as a long-term trade, I think you are coming into a place where you can put risk on and you can take a long position in crude oil futures, and potentially we could even see 100 a barrel again over the next few years. You know, we're sitting at right at all these long-term pivots, and breaking back over these is a very bullish signal. And this is what starts new bull trends in financial markets. You get breaks back above these major pivots, and then the stock or the futures never really look back. Anyways, yeah, I kind of just wanted to make this video to showcase my views on crude oil, and I actually think you have a decent trade opportunity. Shorter term, I think you could potentially short crude futures here, and you could be targeting about 15 points versus about 4 points. Longer term, I'd look to buy off that 26 handle area, and I think we've actually come into a long-term bottom, and we actually see a significant push higher, and maybe even back to this $100 area in the next few years. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video and it helped you out in some sort of way, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. Thank you for watching.